Hey everyone, combat is probably the most talked about feature in the Ashes community, and today in this video, I want to discuss my dream hybrid combat system that Intrepid can make for Ashes of Creation. Alright, let's get into it. The first thing I want to discuss is combat abilities and how they feel to push. This is a very broad topic to most people, and many MMOs do abilities differently. The sounds, the animations, the smoothness of the cast or melee swing all play into what feels good to players. In my MMO experience, I've played everything. Tank, healer, DPS. Playing Lost Ark, I really loved how they use sounds to make the melee swings really crunch and feel good to hit those mobs. The animations are very flashy, a little too flashy for my taste, however it felt good to push down an ability. So I really stressed to Intrepid to make melee abilities with great sound effects to really drive the hit home. I noticed in Alpha 1, I saw a lot of feedback on the floaty combat. Besides root motion being an issue, which they fixed, I really noticed that the sound effects felt very generic and bland. Again, it is an Alpha 1 pass, so I don't want to sound like I'm not giving them any credit, but this is for the future of combat and what they could really improve on. In Alpha 1, we only got to see placeholder abilities and not the actual abilities we're going to have in Alpha 2 and beyond. Also, I like where the ability modifiers were out in Alpha 1. Bleeds, slows, stuns, damage over time effects are all staples in the MMO genre. The other thing I want to stress is major cooldowns. Playing WoW for so many years, I really love to see very interesting CDs for classes like Paladin Wings or Shadow Priest Void Form. I want CDs that enhance the way you play your class and offer very cool opportunities to do major damage or even heal yourself. Alright, now on to the next topic. What do people think on rotations? I believe rotations are very fun if abilities are interesting enough. I believe in most MMOs, it's not really a rotation per se, but more of a priority system. In Final Fantasy XIV, there are rotations to follow, but also priorities as well depending on the mobs or encounter you face. I believe in endgame Final Fantasy XIV, classes get very intricate and sometimes even watching a video guide on YouTube doesn't seem to help much. At least it was like that for me playing Ninja. I really love that class because there is so much to do button-wise. I do feel like for Ashes, I don't want a very complex rotation or priority system like Final Fantasy XIV. People mention Guild Wars 2 a lot when it comes to combat. Now, I've played Guild Wars 2, or I should say I started playing Guild Wars 2, and I played for like 30 minutes, so take that as you will. I don't mind the combat, but the leveling in Guild Wars 2 is just not my bag personally. I really don't like the fill in the heart quests, but that's another story. First off, I will say this about the combat at very low levels. It's smooth and instantaneous when you push a button, which in my opinion is off to a great start. One thing I noticed about Guild Wars 2 is the UI and just how rigid the system is. You can't have multiple bars, and once you change your weapon type, your abilities change. Very similar to the Druid class in World of Warcraft. As you're leveling, however, sometimes you change your weapon type frequently, and trying to remember what weapon type does what and at which number certain abilities were keybind to is a little much for new players such as myself. The other huge thing I really love is the fact that if you play a caster, every single ability you can cast being while on the move. This is wild, and at first I didn't know how to feel about it, but the less I thought about it, the more fun I had moving around and just being freeform and not being landlocked. Another criticism I have is that you don't have any major cooldown abilities to use. What I mean are like 3, 5, or even 10-minute iconic class cooldowns like Bloodlust from World of Warcraft, Avenging Wrath from the Paladin, or even Tranquility from Druids. There are class abilities, but nothing super impactful that change the turn of battle. The closest may be in the Necromancer's Death Shroud ability. So let's go down the list starting from UI and what you see. I would take Final Fantasy's UI editor. Plenty of options to place bars anywhere you like, or have a very minimalist build as well. When it comes to smooth and instantaneous feeling of combat, take inspiration from WoW, Guild Wars 2, or even Lost Ark. All of those MMOs have very smooth and satisfying combat. When it comes to combat sounds, just take Lost Ark for inspiration. The crunchiness, ripping of flesh, blades whistling through the ear. Lost Ark does the sounds in combat I think the best in any MMO personally. When it comes to abilities, having a priority system is probably the best way to go nowadays. Most MMOs have this, and I think Ashes should follow suit as well. Ashes, in my opinion, should have class-based abilities that get augmented by the weapon type you have equipped. Just as an example, let's say you're playing a tank class. You use the Rend ability. and you are also using an axe. Now, Ren bleeds for more for a shorter duration because you are using an axe. If you were to use a sword, the Rend ability has a longer bleed timer and the target now has a slow effect for 30%. That way, you will always have the Rend ability on your bars, but depending on what weapon type you have equipped, changes the augment of that ability. This could also be expanded further in the weapon talent system as well as the class talent system. We also need super cool iconic class-based CDs that could turn the tide of battle. CDs ranging from 2, 3, 5, or even 10-minute CDs would be fine to start out with in Alpha 2. I also would like certain range-based abilities to not be landlocked, which basically means you can cast on the move. I would even be fine with those certain abilities to do less damage on the move compared to not moving and doing more damage. This was a great combat feature in Guild Wars 2, is to be able to run and cast at the same time. I do want to mention the hybrid combat system for a moment. I think they should get rid of the crosshairs and focus on making melee combat targetless for many abilities. I understand melee wanting the action combat approach, and honestly so do I. Intrepid needs to make really cool action-based abilities that are positional, directional, or even charge-based to make some abilities that have that extra flair to them. Healing needs to be tab-based with a variety of smart heals, single target heals, AoE heals, directional heals, ground effect heals, major CD heals, or even charge-based heals would be cool as well. These are my personal takes on my dream hybrid combat system that Intrepid can take and implement into Ashes of Creation. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.